a great cause. For more information, visit unitedwaynashua.org. See you there.
The views and opinions of the following show do not reflect those of WSMN, its owners, and/or associates.
Lisa and Robyn are two fun friends diving deep into conversations where nothing is taboo. They believe in eating dessert before dinner and wearing the bikini. They're allergic to labels, authority, and cheap shoes. Currently, they're launching themselves through life being the good time, bold enough to take risks and inquisitively asking, what's next? They hail from New Hampshire, but they could be anywhere dressed in cute clothes. If they had to share a tombstone, it would read, "Curiosity killed these cats." Your hosts, Lisa and Robyn, on the mic.
Welcome back to the second hour of Lisa and Robyn on the mic. You are listening on WSMN 1590 AM, 95.3 FM. You can watch, stream, and listen on WSMN, Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and you can listen when we're done recording on Spotify.
And Hr2.
And Hr2 and all the other fun places. We are in the studio with Dan Hebert, and he is from New Hampshire Jumpstart Coalition, and we are talking personal finances.
For kids.
For kids. But we kind of feel like we're a little bit, we could learn some things.
That's
how we feel.
Actually, you know what? So this was my first notebook from when we started the show, and I've got 21 rules for money that I have in here that most of them I've picked up. But
let's hear a couple of them.
Well, so number one.
Are they in order, by the way? Priority order?
Not really.
Okay.
I just kind of, as I thought about them.
Okay.
But my number one is definitely number one, 70-20-10 rule. That's why I taught my kids. Early when I said it was just 2, now that they're older, it's 70. You should live on 70% of your of what you make, invest 20, and 10 to charity.
Cool.
So if you're always
spend, save, and share like my I Can Save program.
Yes. So you're always, it takes 70% of what you live on. And literally, when I was working at a lab, when I would get a raise, I would just reinvest my raise into my stocks or into my retirement. I would up my percentage of retirement, and you don't feel the pinch.
Yeah.
But so I'm actually putting more away, so I'm still living on. Anyway, a fun story about that. We talked about credit, which we want to talk about with credit with you, importance of teaching kids credit, and retirement. And I think a lot of times young kids now, what I'm listening to, the 20-year-olds, it's kind of a mixed bag about them thinking like, retirement, like 401, that's kind of old school, like blah, blah, blah. They're looking at different new ways. But when my son, he was 14, and we started talking about when they were 13, 14, about driving, getting your license, and hey, now's the time to start saving for a car, like specifically earmarking something for a car. And my son was like, all right, well, I'm going to work. So LaBelle Winery was right down the road from us at the time, and he got a job as a dishwasher. And so I took him there to apply. He's 14. He's like after school, so he can only work for so many hours. And I thought, this is perfect opportunity. He comes out. I'm sitting in the Jeep, and he comes out, and he's like, hey, I got the job. And then he asked me, it's part-time after school. It's 14. And he's like, I had to fill out all this paperwork, but I didn't see anything about where to put my money for my 401k. And I just laughed because, they're so smart.
Sure.
They're so stinking smart. And I just kind of laugh because I'm like, they don't do that. But he's already like,
that's awesome.
Proud mama moment right there.
Yeah.
Just being like, he's got this 14-year-old thinking about retirement. And I'm like, I love you, kid.
So give me number 9 on your list.
All right, number 9. I actually wanted to do number 5. But number 9.
Well, it's your show.
Oh, well, number 9 is never keep all your money in one account.
Okay, good.
Divide it out, because a lot of times the one that you keep it in, if you're just your checking account and you're using your ATM card, you know that level in there, and it's like, it kind of makes you pause.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of giving you cash in hand.
Yep.
So if you've got to go spend it and you've got to go move some money around, it's a little bit like,
Got it.
It gives you at least pause.
Number 5.
Number 5 is don't emotional spend.
Stop looking at me.
I'm just saying, and I was guilty. I confessed. This mini skirt was that.
Yeah, so I don't, I'm not a big online purchaser. I will if I have to. I'm a realtor, so I'm small businesses. If whatever I can buy from a small business, I'll buy from a small business. I like knowing that, money's being spent in my local community.
Yep.
I do buy stuff on Amazon. I will. But I'm not one of those 10 o'clock at night shoppers.
Gotcha.
Because I also, if I'm spending money, I want to have fun spending money.
So when you wrote number 5, what's the context? What's the background? What were you thinking at the time? Do you remember?
Well, retail therapy.
Okay.
I mean, that's where if I were going to emotional spend,
Okay.
and I've just an awareness of me and where my habits, and it's just a trigger. It's a bumper.
Yeah.
To say, do I really need this?
Yeah. Gotcha.
Most of the time, it's
So
I'm pretty good. I can walk away. I can walk away from some things.
Yeah. When I'm 21 years of doing property management, you were spending other people's money.
Yeah.
So I was always really critical of this. Do we need to spend this money? Is this the best money that this could be spent on? Because when you're managing buildings, the roof is going to be needed done at some point. There's there's so much not fun purchases that go along with that. And people always want to spend money on redo this kitchen. It's like you have a roof leak. There's no point on spending money on the inside making something look pretty when your foundation, the envelope to your building is not secure.
Right.
So we would help people buy and flip properties. So they're buying something that nobody wants at a good price. You go through, you fix it all, you lease it up, and then you can resell it. So it would take about 18 months to do a building. And everybody would be right into all the money's in kitchens and baths. And it's like, yeah, that's something that we say all over and over, but not if your roof is leaking, not if your windows have problems, not if you have a cockroach problem or a mouse problem. Like there's a certain order of things that we do, but they're not sexy.
Yeah.
People like spending sexy money. I think vacations are sexy money.
Okay.
Yes. Outfits are sexy money.
I think retail therapy is sexy money.
We're back to that.
I know we got to get back on track, man, because we can go down that road. Like, oh, I have a vacation. I want to do that.
You got one more
Outfits.
item to share on your list?
Oh, let's see. I got a lot.
How many were there? 21, you said?
21.
Yeah.
If you can't buy it with cash, don't buy it, excluding your house and your car.
So how are you going to do that in 5 years when cash is not widely
Well,
accepted?
the concept in your head is if you
know.
can't. I know. I don't want to.
So
I still like having cash. So, but the concept, the principle is, if I can't buy it, if I can't pay it off on my credit card all at once, then I'm not buying it.
Are your kids, see, now I'm going to press you. Are your kids using cash?
Yes, my cat. Yes,
I mean
kids do
cash,
cash.
like the dollars you're talking
Yes.
about and the coins and all of
Yes.
that. Because companies, since COVID,
I know.
doing away with this.
So I just went to the driving range. It was in Litchfield. And I went to buy, my husband got his bucket of balls, and we needed to break the 20 because the thing doesn't give it back change. That's $10 for the ball. You have $5 ball or $10
Okay.
ball. So I go into their shop that sells everything.
Yep.
They don't have cash. They can't break my money. So I go into the restaurant. They also don't have cash.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, this is just, okay, I'm not doing this. And then as I was walking out, there were two guys, and I said, can one of you break a 20? And one guy's like, yeah, I can. I've been taking bets all day. I've got 21s. So he and give me the money. But what I thought is, I should have not done that. I should have just walked away. But my husband was hitting balls.
There you go.
But there was the part of me that was like, if you're not going to make it easy for me to spend money, maybe I won't spend money.
You know what the genesis of all this was? Do you remember back in the day writing checks, and an out-of-state check would take 7 days to clear?
Oh yeah.
Because it would go through the Fed.
Mm-hmm.
Now all of these checks are clearing overnight. And most people will make check deposits with their phone, right?
Yeah.
And we've learned in financial services that that's actually a more accurate transaction than going through the encoding system that we used to be. So it shows you the speed of technology makes things easier, faster, many times more accurate. Whatever change you're getting back electronically is not going to be from somebody that doesn't know how to make change, with bills and coins. So I think we just got to adapt.
Right.
I was always scared of the cash register.
Oh, I love the cash register.
As
I
a,
was
you mean
always
as a
like-
cashier?
Yes, I didn't like the stress of because I sucked at math, and I was like, I always joke around like, God,
God gives gifts.
well, no.
Math might not be mine. Math is mine, but
If I would be too powerful if I was good at math. So,
right, we just can't have her doing that. That's the same if I had
Yeah.
a good voice and singing.
I had
we
to
just
have
can't
a
have
flaw
me singing.
somewhere.
That seems impulsive to me.
So, no, but the pressure of standing there and getting the change right and handing it to somebody, and there's 10 people in line. Like, I don't do that kind of pressure really well. But
And I love
a
cash
car wreck
register.
on the side of the road, I'm the first one out of the car. I'm like, I can help.
Right.
Chris has a picture of me like we're coming back from, I don't know.
Can I do one of my
getting our
rules?
Christmas tree? Yes.
Stop saying what you make. It's what you keep.
Oh, yes. I have that one done.
So I will say this as a commission-based person, right? We get, and the whole how realtors got paid got changed this year.
We think about like construction, you think about realtors, people that get large commissions or they get big lumps of.
But they don't get money
Yeah,
all
making
along,
deal.
but they get money in it.
Yeah.
End. So one of the things people will always say to me was, oh, that's going to be a great commission.
I
Because
just
they
made
think
$1
you
million.
They think, or people say, I sold $1 million house, I sold $1 million job. And it gives the implication that somehow you have $1 million,
Yeah.
but you don't.
It's not what you make, it's what you keep.
Yeah. Interesting. You
I
know,
love that one.
if you,
That's going to be number 20.
2, I'm keeping track for you.
Yes, 22.
Yeah.
I want to read number 12.
See, I'm into math. It makes me wonder, not wonder, it just makes me think about family discussions,
yeah.
you know, between parents and kids. So we like to talk to we feel we need to talk to our kids about sex. We need to talk to them about smoking and drugs and all of that. But we don't like to talk to them about money for that reason. We don't want the neighbors or the friends to know what, you know, our parents make. And so everything becomes very parochial. You know, you keep it very close to the vest, and yet, in a way, you're not helping them
Right.
learn, you know, what this financial world's going to look like. Because without emotion and without training, these are little fishes to the sharks.
Yeah, and you don't have to talk about your personal experience with money. Like, they
Right.
don't have to. Parents don't have to. You can teach them basic principles,
Right.
you know, about the saving. And
Oh, the reason why I bring that up is because I'll have so many people. I think what's really popular on social media is this idea of success. And this is what I always used to blame realtors for. We have the $1 million club. I hit the $1 million club. You sold a house worth $1 million. You're implying that you're a millionaire. So if anybody wants to, why did you make all this money? The average realtor across all of the realtors in the country is like $40,000. Right? But that's not selling Sunset, like all of these different things,
Sure.
right? And then if you knew that they are a 1099 employee, they have to pay self-employment tax plus their regular rate of tax. They have to pay for their retirement, their sick days, and then all of the expenses that go into driving people around who never buy,
so just real
all
quick.
of yeah.
So if you say you said, you know, or you're at a closing and somebody says, oh, you're making 6%. Say you're 6% included. Like I made $30,000 at commission. How much do you actually keep?
Less than 20%.
Yes. So when you bring it all down,
Yes. It's a percentage. So my 100% is 20%.
Yes. So the 20%
Right.
of your
So-
$30,000 commission, and then you pay all your tax. You know, you pay your taxes, you pay your dues, and all that stuff. And you're barely walking away with like maybe $8,000 if you're lucky.
Well, so then my 20% becomes my 100%. Now I'm doing everything with it. I'm
Right.
saving. I'm buying healthcare.
Right.
So and one of the reasons why I bring that up is on social media, it's really important to seem successful, financially successful. And so they throw around all these things. It's not they're not telling you what they keep. If you have a business that does $5 million a year, but your expenses are $5 million a year, you're bankrupt.
Right.
Right.
Right? So I think we're taught, make money, go make more money. How much money are you keeping? How much
Right.
are your expenses? And that's what would be the budget.
Sure.
The unsexy
Right.
stuff would be the budget.
Right.
When you talk about that flow for kids, do you ever talk about, because one of the things we hear from people all the time is, well, I just don't make enough money. There's not enough money. And it's like, have multiple jobs. I don't even think teenagers are taught to have one job. Parents want to keep their children, it seems, maybe more protected from having to go to work.
Sure.
you know, I worked. I babysat.
God,
I
I
cleaned
worked
off
since I was
cars.
14.
Yeah, I worked without papers at an ice cream store at 14 because I loved money. Not only did I like getting money, but I liked physically handling it.
So, but that assumes that you're going to work for the one motivation of money, when in fact you go to work to learn how to work with others. You learn, an
Yes.
accomplishment of the job. You learn about promotions, and I did a good job. I was recognized for this, or things like that. There's other reasons other than just the motivation
absolutely.
of money, and yet. I don't know. Are parents protecting kids that don't want them to work? Hard to say. I don't know. It's been a while since, my kids were that age.
Yeah.
So I don't really know where that is. But I will say that there is a large percentage of Gen Alphas and Gen Zers that don't expect to be working beyond 35.
Really?
And so this idea of 401k and all that.
There's quite a few of them out there already.
So there's reason one, right? Reason
Yeah.
two, TikTok's full of all the
Yeah.
success stories that you
Yeah.
keep talking about.
Yep.
And then number three, you start factoring in alternative currencies like crypto. I mean, Bitcoin's at 86,000 now. I mean, I know of some kids that are trying to buy one Bitcoin at $86,000. Because they just see that. And when you factor in the national debt at 35 trillion, like we talked about before. So when the United States lost the gold standard or removed the gold standard from the value of the dollar is based on what? Good faith of the United States. Well, now it's 35 trillion in debt. So kids, smart kids, to your point, they're saying, I'm going to go crypto. And that's what's happening.
Well, we dabbled in crypto for a little bit, but
It's so funny. I don't understand the first thing about crypto.
what's funny, I know we're going to get, before we move on, and I know my brain's running, when you talk about it's all over social media and we have this idea of success, I just wanted to read you number 12.
Oh.
My rule for number 12 is never spend money to impress other people unless it's lingerie.
I told you we had a fun show.
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's a male in the room.
Well, it's you either agree or you don't agree. But I think men can have lingerie too. It's just not lacy.
I'm not
in
normally
my feeling.
speechless, but that one made me speechless, I have to say. So.
Yes, good job,
Yeah.
Like
Robyn.
some banana
good job.
hammocks or something like
Yeah.
that. Like
Okay. And so
Yeah,
let's go
some
back to talking
girls
about
be like,
kids.
hot. Anyway, fun fact. I thought that was fun.
Okay, that
Don't
is
spend
fun.
money to impress anybody unless it's lingerie.
Right. And then I would love to talk about this go with the flow. So when you're teaching, say, a 16-year-old about, okay, you're going to be going to college, not going to college. Do you even have that discussion, or is it just the idea that everyone's going to college?
One of the things that we offer that I love is called a reality check. So you go on to, and you can see it on our website. So you go on the reality check, and it's designed for high school students, but it assumes you are out of school and maybe out of college. So it's probably in that 22, 23. And so it goes through and it asks you a series of questions. You're going to live in an apartment. You're going to rent a house. You're going to have a roommate. You're going to have a used car, new car. How many times you go into the gym? What do you expect to spend for groceries, so forth, so on. Get down to the end, and it'll say, are you ready? You hit the button, and it comes back with the hourly rate you need to make in order to sustain the lifestyle you chose. And then it attaches the jobs associated with that
I love
hourly
that.
rate. Now, it's done with the U.S. labor statistics. We update it every year. And it doesn't really have a regional sense. It's an average thing. But it gets the conversation going about how much you need to make and how much you're going to live and what are you going to do. Adulting is hard, right? We've said this before.
It's boring.
Right. But it's also hard. And
Yeah.
the reality check is one good step, too, to get that going. So one of the things we're going to introduce this year, because I have a number, like Teresa, I have a number of financial professionals, financial service professionals, and we're going to create the reality check tour where teachers can invite us into their classroom. We'll have the kids take the reality check and then just have a conversation like we're doing now. Not a presentation, just, what do you think about that? What's your, are you scared? Are you surprised? Is there anything you would do differently? And this is how you bring up that education boat. for these kids. You got to make it real.
So how do people find this?
It's on our website.
And it's called Reality Check.
Reality Check. You go under Teacher Resources, and the drop-down menu will bring you down to the Reality
Yeah,
Check.
I'm gonna actually reel going onto his site and like perusing through.
Because
I think it's a really good resource.
Yeah, I want to put that. I want to post that, or at least post the link on it on our page as well.
Oh, cool.
Because I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a great conversation starter. And we always like to say around Thanksgiving, while the teenagers are around the table with their face in their device, why don't you give them a jolt and give them a reality check and let them do it? I think it's 10 questions, so it's not going to take very long.
Yeah. But it would be fun to see what everyone's. It would be fun to do it as a group and say, okay, what does everyone need to do? Like, that's why I was like, we should. That'd be fun to do as a reel, and we do ours.
Yes, I want to take it.
Oh, there you go.
You know what I mean?
I think it was like on Bridesmaids or something. What's her name? The one that steals all the puppies, and she's like, I took that test, and she's like, said I should have been a truck driver.
Oh, like a Horseshack test, a personality test,
Yes.
something like that.
I'm afraid he'll come back and be like, you should be like a street sweeper.
I
Probably
don't know.
won't. My budget is going to be like, I have to
your
be a
budget.
hooker or
No,
something.
yeah, I'm not sure about that, Robyn. Yeah.
A high-end one.
Yes.
Impulsive.
Yes, impulsive.
The girl's impulsive, I'll tell you.
So when we talk about psychology, when we talk about impulse, that also brings me up to the neurodivergent brain and ADD and ADHD. So one of the things I heard someone say, and I was like, I've been asking that question of myself a lot, so I'm so glad someone put it into words, was how much of us actually have ADD or ADHD, all the letters? Or are we becoming that because information and our attention is constantly grabbed at so often that we're training ourselves to have that?
So Dr. Kadaris, that I mentioned earlier, he referenced this.
Okay.
And I don't have the statistics with me, so I can't tell you what they are. But the number of children with ADHD is definitively growing. And now, and I forget the older statistic, but now 1 out of 36 children are diagnosed with autism. Why is that?
Right.
What's going on?
Well, so we read this book. Is it The Body Keeps Score?
Yes.
Where he talks about how it's maybe not really even ADHD. You could probably say it better. Different people's brains think differently. And our norm in our society has only adapted to this way of thinking, in this way.
So-
I've never been diagnosed with it, but I definitely think different. I organize my words different. Even my, there's sometimes that things come out of my mouth and like my husband would be like, what? Just the way that I've organized my words, it's different. He's like, I would never have said it that way, but it does paint a good picture. And he's like,
So I think one of the things that they were talking about is, we teach based on linear thinking, right? It's very hard to teach abstract comment, abstract ideas. And when I wanted to be an air traffic controller, so before you can become an air traffic controller, you have to be able to see in 3D, or you're not going to be able to become they can't teach you the skill of being able to see that way. And architects have it. That's probably why I'm good with
Dentists
property.
have it.
Dentists, you have to have a very, almost like a 3D model component to your brain. Some people don't think that way. Some people have left to right or right
they
to
actually
left.
have these tests. Like
Yes.
my daughter had to take a whole course of like, if they had a piece of paper and how many times it's folded, they'll give you the end result and they'll show you you have to pick which way it was folded to get that result.
Oh, wow.
And it's very complicated.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the point
Really
of
have to
that
think
was
about it.
the ADHD. If we're training everyone, we're almost training impulsivity, especially not even for money purposes, but just in general.
Well, don't you think that's all coming from the digital addiction that we're all
Yes.
faced with now?
Yes.
Those images, the information. If you were trying to remember something, like, I don't know, making this up, what year did Joan Rivers pass away? Well,
Is she dead?
Jesus. Robyn.
Pay no attention to her.
I know. I wonder if she flies out the window, how that'll work. So you sit back and you think, okay, so maybe now we'll all start processing it as, well, pre-COVID,
Yes.
post-COVID,
Yeah.
or to grab the phone and just look it up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that instant gratification also relates to instant need for information, or, we don't push our brain enough to think that through.
GPS.
Well, then talk about AI.
Lisa just tested us when we were down in Clearwater.
I said, I come down here a lot, and I need to start knowing how to get to places not GPS, because I've used the GPS.
Sure.
So I'm not looking up and memorizing.
Yeah, street signs or
even
points
like
of
a business
interest.
being
Sure.
there or something. So
We went from St. Pete.
which
So-
I had never done via non-GPS.
So best way to decide. So St. Pete is at the top. Clearwater. How was our triangle? We had like a triangle.
Well, the problem is that you go over water.
Yes.
And if you miss the exit to go over the water, you go to Tampa. And so what I did was, she was like, it's exit 17. You're going to want to get off. And I was like, no, let me try to do this without the GPS. And then I saw like exit 20. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going down. No, I was not. I was going up. But I didn't know that until I started crossing the water. And I'm like, well, we're crossing the water, so we're not getting off at 17. And I
just
see
one exit too late.
planes flying. So I know that's the airport. I'm going to go there because I know how to get back from the airport.
So the direction of the sun, a position on the sun, had no bearing on you.
No, it
It
was
was
at night.
It was at night.
So the position of the moon had no bearing
So
on you.
literally we
No, I don't know how to navigate by the moon.
just we just had to go from St. Pete straight down to like Treasure Island to get home this way. But we ended up going St. Pete, Tampa, Clearwater, and back. So we made like a big old circle.
But I started to get.
But we did it without GPS. See,
There you
we
go.
were like pushing our boundaries to be
Yeah.
like, we can do this.
An accomplishment.
Flying solo.
Well, I used
Duo.
to do everything by not having GPS.
Of course.
And now I don't do. I could go to the same place 10 times, and I always use the GPS
Right.
because if I do it once, I've never really learned how to go there. And it kind of gets into. I used to have a lot of life skills that maybe I feel like, well, what if the grid goes down? Can I get somewhere? Can I get to your house if the satellite is down? Or, and it's. I grew up without so much technology that the more that it's pushed, the more frustrated I am that I don't want it, because
Yeah.
what is it like to be like human?
I mean, well
And
we all
anymore.
lived in the time where we had to get a map and draw our route out, mark our route or make our notes on it, however we were going to get there. Then when we were after that incident, our non-GPS drive home, I was thinking, well, gosh, how did we do it? Because I used to live in Virginia, and I drove up from the Cape to back and forth to Virginia many, many times. I was like, how did I do that without a cell phone? It was MapQuest. Remember, you
Oh,
used
yeah.
to print out our maps?
Mm-hmm.
So
But I'm
could you-
always a landmark person.
So could your kids read a map?
Yes.
A AAA map?
Yes.
Okay.
So we went to Germany, and my son wanted to go to the zoo. So I was like, if you want to go to the zoo, you got to figure out how to get there from Munich to Heilbronn or whatever. So he had to take us on the trains.
Okay.
And so every time we've gone to Boston, I'm like, hey, where do we want to go? We're going to go over to Fenway. We're right here. So looking at the map, I feel like to the best of my ability, I tried to raise my kids in a way that my deficits were their strong suits.
Gotcha.
Like, I didn't want them to feel lost or out of
Yep.
place. I want them to feel empowered. I want them to feel like, it's cool. So my daughter just drove down to Boston, going to school, and we followed her down, and I drove down with her. And I was like, do you want me to drive? And she's like, no, I got this. I'm like, all right.
Cool.
And like to the train station, I'm like, I didn't say a word. Just
Yeah.
sat there, and she's like, all right, we're over here. I need to get there. And she's talked to me a few times. Her first run on the subway by herself, she would call me, and then we got to talking, and then she got distracted like I did, and she missed her train stop. Had to turn around and go back. But
Sounds like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
yes, yes. I always say I'm an idiot savant.
Well, it'll be interesting, right, as this Gen Alpha generation continues, and you get a blackout or you get a loss of power, and without access to the technology, what will they do? And that's why I think, like Dr. Kadaris was saying, he's had some patients that he treats that the only way to change their mentality is to go on a 4-week detox.
Yeah.
And
It's almost like a drug addiction.
it is. It is in many ways. And
Well, because we didn't understand. There's a book called The Anxious Generation, and it was talking about. It starts out the chapter. If you could, basically, it abuses this child mentally, is what it does. I actually should probably read a section of it on our show next week, but it talks about like you doing this thing to this kid all before they're 12 years old. You permanently alter their mental state. You like, and it goes through this thing. You make them suicidal. You make them compare, and it does this whole thing. And it's like that's what your device does to your child, and you're giving it to them at 6, 7. You know, and it said before it was all new, so we had no data. Well, now we have a generation of data, and there are children, and they're suffering. They're more suicidal.
That's
they're
right.
you know all of these horrible things that someone is making money on doing this to your children.
Sure.
You know, and when I think about, like, when we talk about the college thing, I love that you have that, you know, what you should be doing. But I also think I flew a helicopter for the first time this year. And when I asked my helicopter instructor how I became a helicopter pilot, he said I was going to be a computer engineer and I would fall asleep in class.
Yeah.
I wanted to do this so bad. This was my whole entire life, and I could not stay awake in the class. And then he went on a trip, broke his leg or broke an ankle or whatever it was, got helicoptered out, and he said he fell in love.
Yeah.
So it's so funny how we think the things that we
Sure.
want to do
never
until we
know.
have exposure. We don't know. And when you talk about this, when I talk about college for children, I will often say to a lot of parents, and parents don't like hearing it, and they always think it's because I don't have children, but it's because I'm a financially aware person, that you're going to pay how much does this education cost you? Okay. With housing, you know, it's $250,000. How many years what job will you get when you come out, and how much does that job pay, the average job? And then how many years does it take you to pay off this education? Can you get to that same career any other way or shape or form besides $250,000 worth of education? That's your answer.
And are you going to be happy?
Because not very many people are spending $250,000 on an education in 1 year making $250,000.
Right.
And there's a lot of things like my friend's daughter was in criminal justice, and then everybody said she should go get her master's. And so when she sat down with me, I said, "But what does your master's get you?"
Right.
Well, everyone says I have to get it.
Right.
How much does it cost? What, like, you know, everything. Well, I want lots of things. How much do they cost?
But you know, when it comes to oh boy.
And some people's kids don't even like the school they go to in high school. What are you going to like? If you don't like school now, you're not going to like school later.
But you see, for years and years, it's starting to change, I think, but for years and years, parents said the only way you're going to succeed is if you have a college education. Don't go into the trades, and yet
Yes.
now the trades are coming
Suffering.
back, and
Yeah.
kids are making a heck of a lot more money in the trades than some of them are with their fancy degree. But let me tell you the story of about 15 years ago. So I was in a meeting with a bunch of financial aid folks from different colleges, and I was just sitting there listening. And one of them turns to the other and he says, "So, do you inflate your tuition?" And the other guy says, "Oh yeah, of course, everybody does." So I said, "Well, what do you mean by that?" And he said, "Well, today's parents want to be able to brag to their friends and families that their kid got a big award. So we increase the price of the tuition and give them that award." And I said, "Are you telling me that this is like the MSRP of a car?"
Yeah.
And he says, "Yeah, absolutely. It's what the parents want." There's a cultural thing right there.
Wait, I didn't get to vote on that because I would have smacked that down quick.
So it's just showing how you know we can talk about this all we want, but this is evolving over time, and this is where we're at now. So where we're at now, alternative currencies like crypto, maybe peer-to-peer like Venmo and all the other payment plans. Getting rid of cash is possibly coming down to us. Alternative financial institutions. Think about investing now. By I can't think of the company there, but these day traders and things. I mean, everything's changing.
Yeah.
And the kids need to be armed with the information to make the decision. It's still a country of choice.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about giving the education and being prepared for it. But we have to know that it's not 1974, it's not 1963. It's
Yeah,
not any of
we're
that.
in the
It's-
world of like
It's going fast.
information and evolving. The rate at which we are evolving is growing exponentially.
Sure.
Like even days wise, like
Sure.
we have Starlink, we have look at all
Right.
these things. You have Palm Pay or whatever,
Yeah.
Palm Pay. That's
You're
cool.
going to try that, aren't you?
Palm Pay.
Check it out.
Yeah.
That might be scary to me because I'm like, oh, I didn't mean to buy that. What was the return policy?
I don't know.
Actually, no.
Well, the quicker
I
you-
was just saying
so
that
did
would
you
that would
know-
happen if you actually walked by the sticker, like the dress, and you're like, oh my god, that's mine.
So I'm
I
gonna
just bought that.
That's an interesting joke. So you buy it with the right, but return it with the left.
Yes,
Yeah.
I like that.
So there's so you know how if you enter into a contract and you say I'm going to sign up for this thing and it costs $20,000 and I pay today with $4,000 and you sign a contract. If you sign it electronically, you are not eligible for the 3-day rescission period you would be afforded if you signed it in person.
Really?
Right.
So everyone knows if you sign a contract in 3 days,
No,
if you're
maybe
like,
not.
I
Everybody
read
does
it.
know that.
Okay. If you were in person and I'm in person with you and I'm like, hey, buy this timeshare,
Yes, right to rescind.
right? You give 3
Yeah.
days to review that contract and rescind. If you sign that electronically, that same exact contract with no person-to-person thing, you have no 3-day right to rescind.
Why is that?
Because it's electronic. It's not protected by the same governmental laws. So doing all of this stuff electronically, you lose all of those rights you previously were awarded
Wow.
to find out any information.
And you lose the emotion of, oh my God, I'm just signing this. I now owe this. You lose all of that. I can remember.
And you can't rescind it. You
Yeah.
had an impulsivity, you had the emotion of it, and now you can't change your mind.
There you go. I remember in that Great Recession when all those subprime loans were coming down. Just prior to that, there were, and my wife was in the mortgage business at the time. There were a number of buyers who would give the power of attorney to their realtor to sign the mortgage, sign the deed, sign that. And I used to think, here you are, probably the biggest financial transaction in your life, and you're going to delegate it to someone else because you're too busy or things like that. So what does the children observe from that? See, I'm trying to get this across
Message,
that
yeah.
everybody, these kids, are watching the adults, whether it's parents, guardians, people on the street, and they're trying to figure out, how can I have what they have, or how can I avoid what they're doing, or any of that. Those are conversations going on in their head.
What do you think is one of the most important things to tell the parents of kids right now about money?
I think it would be to their best interest if they would just share the home budget. They would share, this is what it costs to live here. And when public service or Eversource comes up with an increase, that now means that increased cost comes out. So maybe I'm not buying Cheerios this week, or
Right.
I think those
Having real conversations.
those table conversations, and you can always, to your point, Robyn, you can always tell the children, we don't want this shared with your friends or other
Yeah.
families, but we're mentioning this so that you're aware. We're a family. We're moving forward as a family. So you need to know the money movement of this going forward, so that when Dad gets, a raise or a promotion, maybe it won't go into this bucket. Maybe it'll go for the future of the family, and it'll invest it, like you mentioned. So I just think open conversation is the key.
And I think we have, one of the saddest things being a property manager is that December is the time that people don't pay their rent because they have to have Christmas. And people will say to you, I'm not sending my rent because my kid needs a Christmas.
Yeah.
And we always say, your kid needs a home. Like there
Yeah.
are actually organizations that buy toys for kids and stuff. We of course we want everyone to have Christmas,
Sure.
from that perspective. And I remember we evicted someone. It was in January when they actually got the eviction, and the kid had put on they had like a family memo whiteboard, and the kid said, I'm happy I got a cell phone for Christmas, even if it wasn't the cell phone I wanted. And I thought, you ungrateful child, you guys don't have a house.
Right.
Because your parent still bought some cell phone for you, however old you are.
Yeah.
Which is a need versus a want in the first place,
Sure.
amongst a million other things. But in the part of me that was always, what are we doing? How is it that a family would think it's way more important for my kid to have, for me to try to buy my kid the thing that they want over paying my mortgage? But then I know other people who refinance their house to put their kids through college. Then they find out their kid is failing out of school and you've just remortgaged your house for it. Like, we do have all these emotional.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times you get in that situation and we haven't asked the child, do you really want to go to college? It's like, no, that's the thing. And, we grew up for many years with that mentality of like, you're nothing if you don't have a college degree.
Right, exactly.
If you don't do anything, if you don't do anything and have that piece of paper, nobody's going to hire you and you're worthless, blah, blah, blah. I grew up feeling that way,
Sure.
feeling like, that if you didn't have a college degree, then you're not as good as the rest of those people. And
Sure.
that has nothing to do with it. I have met so many wealthy, cool human beings that didn't have a college education, and they're like more about, hey, this is how you do, here's some tips about money.
And one of the things that they perpetuate in college is you having a college degree. Well, they did this when I was in college, which was 100 years ago, but they would say the person doing the same job without your degree makes 25% less than you. That's not true.
Right.
Like, so there was all of these lies constantly perpetuated, or maybe it was an older system. And what I love is that you're talking about how fast everything is evolving now and how we need to make decisions for today. So where would parents or any person who is interested in the information that is on your website, where would they go so that they can look it up?
Yeah, so our website is nhjumpstart.org. And then there are also links to the national website that have, additional resources for that.
Yeah. So if you wanted to start talking to your kids at home because you're not sure the New Hampshire school system.
Reality check is perfect.
Yes.
And I think the other thing is the parents get in touch with their schools, get in touch with their districts and say, we want this. We now know it's a requirement.
Mm-hmm.
So why isn't it a requirement in my school? Bedford has it. That's fine. We have a number of schools now that are offering a standalone course. I think it's perfect.
Mm.
So we're going to run out of time, but I really wanted to touch base on like credit and like, what do you do about credit? What do you
teach people about credit?
Yeah. And as far as parents too, like we had I wish I had known this sooner, but a friend of ours, he does like a credit repair service out of New York City. And he did a little seminar one day and he was telling us that, if you have good credit and maintain good credit, when your kids are little, put them on your credit card and help build their credit. So when they're coming out, they don't have to start from scratch. And it gives them lending, can give them easier lending power, gives them, anyway. How do you feel about that?
That depends. That depends on the credit card issuer. So some of them, if they're under 18, will not report to a credit bureau. So that point is moot.
Oh.
And in many cases, years ago, Cap One made a fortune on giving credit cards out to kids who are not 18. There's no problem in doing that, except when they default, because they're not of legal age to enter that contract, they couldn't pursue them. So the default rate on those cards and the loss rate on that book of business was insane. So what I like to tell kids, and because we're in a world now, you just pointed it out, Lisa, that everything is done electronically and we buy things online. What I say to them is, you need a credit card for your online purchases. I'd rather see you do that than use a debit card, because if there's a problem with that transaction, then you're only liable for $50, and maybe many times the credit card issuer will review that. If it's your money, that debit card, that could take weeks for that to come back.
Yeah.
So for your own protection. And then the third item, the most important item, is treat that card like cash. Pay that balance off every month.
Yeah.
That's what builds that credit like crazy when you do that.
Yeah.
But it takes some discipline, It takes knowing your flow or a budget or
And on
however you want to
time.
talk about it. Yeah, you got to pay it on time. And that's the first step to adulting.
So do you guys talk to kids and parents about how not all debt is bad debt? Like, knowing when your mortgage is your debt. I don't think that you should look at, my house is my asset. My house is not my asset until it's paid off.
Okay.
Is how I feel.
All right.
Or until until the market is, I have so much equity into it that I'm going to make money off of it
Yeah.
when I sell no matter what.
Yeah.
It's not, to me, I don't look at it that way.
Right.
I don't look at it as an asset. It's a liability until it's paid for.
So for me, credit is a tool to allow you to have the things you want within your means.
Buying power.
Right. So how many of us can pay cash for an average car now, which is $35,000? You've got to have a car loan,
Right.
or you got to lease it, or something along those lines. So credit is you can't pay cash for a house. I mean, $450,000. How are you going to do that? So,
Right.
credit is a necessary tool for you to acquire the items that you want and then live according to your means. You have a choice with a new car. You want to buy a new car? You want to lease a new car? You want to buy a used car, and then you got to put money into it for, the maintenance or the tires or any of these types of things. So it's all about choices again.
Yeah.
And how do you, so I'm impulsive and I'm impulsive about money. How do I go about starting to change my mindset and the psychology around my impulsivity around money?
So first of all, what makes you think you're impulsive?
Oh, I'm making an example so that I'm
Okay.
like, I'm having, I
So-
do have an impulsive side to me.
So don't you think then, if we're not talking
Mm-hmm.
about you, you have to first identify that you do have this issue?
Yes.
And how are you going to do that? It probably comes around when by the end of the month you've got $12 in your checking account. When like if you had avoided those dresses in Florida,
Right.
I'd have more money, kind of a thing. So I just think that self-awareness is got to be the first step, right? Got to be.
Yeah, and then I think tracking it. I think knowing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Because if you have a different credit card coming in every week and you're always paying minimums and everything, you really don't have a handle, because it's easy to, what is the minimum I owe, write that, and then put that away.
Sure.
It's almost like an autopsy,
Right.
or, a postmortem. What are we doing? Because we used to do those in real estate, where we go, okay, what went well, what didn't go well, what do we need to plan for? And so one of the things that I do this with your husband all the time, because we're looking at a real estate thing, and I said, you have to budget in a minimum of 18% for what you don't expect.
Yeah.
It was 10% when I first started. I used to budget in 10%. Then I went up to 18, and right now I will say maybe we should budget in 25% for what we can expect, because costs are going up exponentially. Supply shortages since COVID.
Yep.
Like everything has just become this unknown budget piece. To me, has gone up.
Yeah.
And if I don't use that unknown budget piece,
Yep.
then it was, we came in under budget by 5%
Right,
or 3%,
right, right.
but we're never, that whole amount never went in there.
Right.
So that was like one of the things of, the emergency day fund. Who knows if you're going to have a car repair, to have, I think you say 6 months in a bank account or something.
Yeah. I said 6 months of savings.
You should have for all your expenses
Sure.
in a savings and stuff.
So
and it's hard to get there if you're living beyond, and sometimes you're living beyond your mean because life is really expensive.
Right. Well, you don't buy a sports car and then you fuss about premium gas. Like
Yes.
Yeah.
you don't fuss about premium gas. Like, did you see the price of that gas? Like, well,
Yeah.
maybe that was a poor decision on your part for doing that. But
Sure.
so a lot of time, like I've said it, and I've said it to my husband a couple of times. I think in business and in life, if you plan or you plan, budget, and forecast. And I think that if you, do those things, I actually like, and I play tricks with myself, or I play games with myself too when it comes down to money. Like, ooh, if I have this, like all the bills are paid, here's the surplus, like where do I want this to go? If I have a little bit of extra, if I have my fun money or my play money, where do I want this to go? Sometimes I will divide it out and say, we're going to go on a trip. And then I just actually pocket it to it. So I play a game with my money in looking at it that way. And I do have it in several different accounts, because then it's like you forget about that.
Yeah.
You forget about that. And if you're only living on your checking account, your primary checking account, and you only keep a certain amount in there for that excess. So when you get a paycheck, divide it out, put it into those different accounts. And that's what I do. And then I'm like, ooh.
I miss the old Christmas clubs. Remember those back in the day where, you could go in and deposit $2 every week or $5 every week, and then at the end they'd send you a check, and that was how you paid for Christmas. It's going back to that save to buy mentality that no longer exists.
Right.
I think we do need to push that.
And when I just saw a study, it was like a week or two ago, that said the average New Hampshire resident uses 63% of their total income to afford housing, rent or buy.
Wow.
So
that goes.
So
out,
that
like,
doesn't.
you can't
That
live on
math
the-
doesn't make.
Well, that means you couldn't do it by my math by living on that 70, 20,
Nope.
10.
Nope. But so that means something has to change.
Yeah,
The cost of
absolutely.
living has gotten to the point. So one thing that I've been telling investors lately, because the idea has been you just raise the rent to whatever you're paying for it and it covers, because there was a lot of rent increase capability in the market, but now people have done that, and now rent has to start going down.
It has to.
And people say no because there's no inventory, and it's like, well, a lot more inventory is coming up, but if no one can afford your product, it doesn't matter if there's no other product available, no one can afford your product.
Right. That's right.
So at the end of the day, it has to be what people can afford. The reason why smartphones still are $1,400 is because they let you pay $100 a month in your fee.
Right.
If they just said, no, you got to pay us $1,400, no one would be turning in their phones
Exactly.
to get a new
We're
one.
just going to rape you slowly.
Yeah.
We're going to rape you in little tiny bits, 100 times at a time. Little 100 rapes. We're going to give you 100
We
rapes.
gave you free texting, We have
Jeez.
unlimited texting.
Exactly.
I wish text and email cost money. I do. Because you notice you don't get a
No,
million
we would
pieces of
have
mail.
created a whole new language, because, like, if you know, and it would be,
Yeah.
the IYK, Y, we'd be talking like that, and we're like, what?
No, people would stop doing
Oh,
it.
we're the American Aborigines.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
The English language has become like,
Well, part of my whole thing about time is money, and the resource piece is huge. If I have 10,000 unread email messages, that's a resource to me.
Right.
And that's why if you're putting everything in buckets,
Right.
time is the only.
Boy, we need to
We
have
can't
him back.
buy more
I
of it.
hate
I know.
our theme song's coming
Uh-oh.
on. I'm like, man, we need to have you back, because this is
Thank
good
you for
conversation.
coming.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
for
you for
having me.
coming.
It's
Yes,
been
thanks
awesome.
for joining
Yeah.
us this morning.
Absolutely.
We're going to put some of your stuff up on social media so
Okay,
that people
good.
can see it as well, too. And then if you ever want to come back.
Perfect.
And is there anything you want to tell people before we leave?
Just to check out our website at nhjumpstart.org. A lot of information there.